Week 4 of the NFL has now concluded, and there were some highs, there were some lows, there were some all-around surprises, and more. And it's time. My 3 biggest games of the week. NFL Week 4. Here we go. Starting off with Rams versus Colts. For the Colts, they were 3-0 coming into this week. Nobody expected that. Daniel Jones left Danny Dimes behind and turned into Indiana Jones. But in this one, he showed flashes of fading back into who he once was, as he had some crucial turnovers. However, his turnovers were not the real problem for the Indianapolis Colts. Their problems came from their wide receiver, Adonai Mitchell. Adonai Mitchell, on 2 different possessions, cost his team a touchdown. How so? Well, his first big mistake came, he caught the ball, he juked defenders left and right, outran them all, and made it all the way to the end zone. He was walking in, showboating, put the ball out, and put the ball down. The ball fell right before he entered the end zone, which is unbelievable considering the fact that this is an NFL wide receiver. This is not college. You can't make these kinds of mistakes. Not that you can in college, but you get what I'm saying. He dropped the ball before the end zone, tried to get it back. He couldn't before the ball went out of bounds, which you know what that means. That's a touchback, meaning the Rams get the ball and you get nothing, Adonai Mitchell and the Indianapolis Colts. You get nothing. That was mistake number 1. Mistake number 2 came on a rush from Jonathan Taylor late in the game. Jonathan Taylor, one of the biggest highlights of the Colts season so far, one of the best players in the league, ran the ball in for a touchdown. It got called back. Why is that? Because Adonai Mitchell got called for a holding penalty away from the play. Maybe had he not held him, Jonathan Taylor would have gotten tackled. Well, that's the whole point of the penalty. But Adonai Mitchell cost Jonathan Taylor a touchdown. He cost the Indianapolis Colts by a touchdown. And that was his second time, which means he cost them 2 touchdowns. You want to know how much they lost by? 1 touchdown. Adonai Mitchell, Indianapolis, step it up. And I'm not saying the Colts would have won this game had it not been for that, because you can't blame 2 plays on the entire game. However, that on top of the fact that when the game mattered most at the end of the game, Danny Dimes, yes, Danny Dimes, not Indiana Jones, Danny Dimes threw a pick on what could have been a game-tying drive. Threw a pick, Rams kneeled the ball, game over. Daniel Jones was looking great, but for the first time this season, he was looking human. He looked human. He did not look like the Indiana Jones we saw through the first 3 weeks. What we saw was the Danny Dimes from New York's days. He had good games in New York, but too many costly plays that just didn't line up with what the team needed to win. That's what happened this week for Daniel Jones, and that's why the Indianapolis Colts lost this game. That on top of, on the flip side, the Rams played tremendously. The LA Rams, Matthew Stafford, 375 yards to go along with 3 touchdowns. He looked like prime Matthew Stafford. You know who looked like they were in their prime? Who is in their prime? Puka Nacua. I will talk more about him later. But 13 receptions, 170 yards, and a touchdown. I don't want to get too invested in this right now because I could talk about this guy all day long. But I will wait on that until later, so stay tuned. But Puka Nacua, he might be the best receiver in football at this current point in time. He's looking like prime 2021 Cooper Kupp, but more. He's got it all. I'm going to pause because I want to talk about this later. So stay tuned for Puka Nacua. And although this game was back and forth crazy, we wanted to see how would the Rams turn around and look after a brutal, brutal defeat against the Philadelphia Eagles, and how would the Colts look coming off 3-0 in their biggest test of the season so far. Both teams look great at times. However, this one ended phenomenally. It was 2020 with less than 2 minutes to go in the game. Final drive for the Rams. First play of that drive. Tutu Atwell, a name you probably haven't heard in a while. Tutu Atwell. 88-yard receiving touchdown. He took that all the way to the house for the win for the Rams. And when they gave it back, Indianapolis and Daniel Jones turned the ball over. Rams knelt it. Game over. Tutu Atwell, his only reception of the game, 88 yards and a touchdown. He had a phenomenal moment to cap off a great game for LA all around, and that, along with everything else, was why this was one of the 3 biggest games of the week. The second game of the week, a lot of you guys will have had fantasy implications on this guy, who I'm about to name. But he had a phenomenal game, a coming out party for the rookie running back from Boise State University, Ashton Jeanty, he was phenomenal in college, yet this first 3 weeks of the season, the Raiders hardly used him the way that everyone had expected. But what did he do? In his first big game against the Bears, he scored 3 touchdowns. Not 1, not 2, but 3. 3 touchdowns for the Raiders. That was all of their touchdowns. Ashton Jeanty, if the Raiders wanted points, they went to him. They also had a field goal and extra points. But, if you wanted points, you went through Ashton Jeanty for the Las Vegas Raiders. But the story of this game isn't about Ashton Jeanty. It's about the inconsistency from both teams in this game. Ashton Jeanty was phenomenal, but Geno Smith still had 3 interceptions. The Bears forced 4 turnovers for the second game in a row, and this game ended on a blocked field goal that would have won Vegas the game. Vegas lined up for a chance to win, and what happens? Chicago comes around, blocks that field goal. This game ended 25-24. That was it. It ended right there. And you know why? It's because Caleb Williams was able to lead a game-winning drive just before that field goal took place. And when it did, when it mattered most, despite the inconsistencies throughout the game, despite him having moments looking like he needed to get to that next level, when it mattered most, when the time was low and Caleb Williams had the ball for Chicago, he took matters into his own hands and won the game convincingly for the Chicago Bears. He did exactly what he was supposed to do. DeAndre Swift was able to run the ball in, score the game-winning touchdown, all thanks to a great drive led by Caleb Williams that the Bears were able to capitalize with on a game-winning touchdown from DeAndre Swift. That is the play that led into the Raiders' field goal that ended up getting blocked, winning the Chicago Bears this game. So the thing that we have to look forward to with both of these teams, can the Bears fix their inconsistencies? And for the Raiders, can they fix theirs? Because theirs are much more apparent than the Chicago Bears, because the Bears have won the last 2 weeks. They finally got on the board last week with a win against Dallas. Now they get on the board again. Can they make this momentum? Can they bring it forward? The Bears have a bye next week. They have things that they need to fix. Can they hold back on some of those inconsistencies, move forward past the bye week, and build some momentum off of this? I would love to see the Chicago Bears be an offensive juggernaut this season, something they absolutely can be. Rome Odunze has been amazing. Caleb Williams, DJ Moore, the connections, the abilities that this team has offensively, the sky is the limit, genuinely, for the Chicago Bears. But they need to fix some of their problems. And for the Raiders, they have too many turnovers. They have too many problems. They've got to fix it. They need to start using Ashton Jeanty the way that Ashton Jeanty is meant to be used. He is meant to be a workhorse running back. He is a force to be reckoned with, and Geno Smith needs to stop throwing turnovers. If those things can happen, the Raiders can turn this thing around this season. But until they prove that, it will keep looking the same with some of these losses. And lastly, the third and final game of the week. It takes us right into Sunday Night Football for a matchup between the Cowboys and the Packers, a matchup I've said, you have thought, and everyone around the sports industry has had their eyes on. Cowboys-Packers. Micah Parsons returned to Dallas. Who will get revenge? Micah Parsons and the Green Bay Packers or Jerry Jones and the Dallas Cowboys? Well, nobody. We kind of got left this game the same way we walked into it, with questions, not answers. Early on, it looked like the Packers were going to dominate this game. The Packers lined up to kick their PAT after scoring their second touchdown, now up 13-0. The Cowboys, what do? They blocked the field goal, grabbed the ball, and ran all the way back for a 2-point conversion. What was almost a 14-0 lead for the Packers with all the momentum quickly changed as a 14-0 lead turned into a 13-2 lead, and momentum flipped in that moment because for the rest of the second half, it was all Dallas. Dallas came back. Dak threw maybe the highest ball that I've ever seen, and somehow, someway, in double coverage, George Pickens was able to come down with it. It was a phenomenal snag that ended in a touchdown for Dallas. They kicked it off. Packers got the ball. Jordan Love fumbles, goes back to Dallas, who scores a touchdown again, taking a 16-13 lead, going from what would have been 14-0 to up 16-13 going into half. In the span of a minute, the Packers went from an 11-point lead to a 3-point deficit. That was how the end of the first half went for the Green Bay Packers. And when it came time for the second half, I think something in these Sunday Night Football games got these defenses tired because they decided, oh, it's nap time. I'm tired. I don't want to play defense. Go ahead, offenses. You can do whatever you want. Because there were 31 points scored in the fourth quarter. This game going into overtime was 37-37 after being 13-2 with just about a minute left in the first quarter. The defenses went to sleep. Micah Parsons finally got his sack. He got it in overtime, which may have saved the game for the Green Bay Packers. But this one, oh my goodness, it was chaotic. It was amazing. It just ended so poorly. The fact that we had a football game end in a tie. I know we call it football. It's not football. It's football. There are no ties. I don't like ties. You don't like ties. I want to see a winner. A winner! Because of this defensive slump, I'm using that word more literally than anything. Because of these defenses deciding to take a breather, relax a little bit, this became an offensive showdown. Both offenses put up over 400 yards, 300 in the air and 100 on the ground, more than that on both sides. And it was absolutely the most entertaining game of the day. It was back and forth. There were 9 total lead changes. But what a disappointing end to such a dramatic and exciting game. What a boring, boring finish. A field goal as time expires in overtime to tie the game. Not to win, not a game-winning field goal, a game-tying field goal as time expired in overtime. This game ended a 40-40 draw, the second highest tied game in NFL history. And all of us are just sitting here like, come on, man. Come on. We don't want to see a tie. We want to win. We want a winner. We want a loser. Not this. Not this. And I know you're probably thinking that I'm missing one of these games of the week. I'm not. It's not missing in my game of the week because it is my shock of the week. The New York Giants beating the Los Angeles Chargers in Jackson Dart's debut. Although on the stat sheet, it might not look as good as he played. He was able to evade pressure left and right. His legs were able to help him get around. He even got the first touchdown of the game by running it in. Jackson Dart looked good at times, yet I'm not sold on him. Not yet. However, this was an impressive game from the New York Giants. Their defense, that I've been saying is elite. They held the Chargers to less than 20 points for the first time all season. A team who has a great offense with Quentin Johnston, who, I know, elite. He is genuinely a phenomenal player. He had made phenomenal catches left and right. Omarion Hampton had some amazing runs. Justin Herbert is elite. Yet the Giants' defense was able to hold them to less than 20 points for the first time all season. And offensively, the Giants were able to get it going enough. Now, the Chargers have a good defense, so they didn't make the Chargers' defense look sloppy. They didn't make them look silly. However, the Giants, led by Jackson Dart, were able to walk into MetLife Stadium and win this game. Unfortunately, Malik Nabers did go down with what is feared to be a torn ACL. That would be absolutely catastrophic to their season, especially with Jackson Dart starting at quarterback, losing his wide receiver 1, not even fully into his first game. That is sad. Malik Nabers, we pray for you. Hope you get healthy soon and get back to where you were. But for the rest of this season, I don't know if I trust Jackson Dart entirely. He's good enough. But I don't think that the Giants are going to be anything special moving forward. I think that this week we saw that the Giants are capable of winning games. But whether or not they do is a whole nother question that we will need to wait and see upon. However, my shock of the week, the New York Giants over the Los Angeles Chargers. But before we move on, my honorable mention of my biggest shock of the week is the Baltimore Ravens. Baltimore, what are we doing? You've got to step it up. I know that the Chiefs are a good team and the Chiefs have had Lamar's number, but oh my God, you acted like you've never walked into a good game before. I know there were injuries left and right. The entire defense was hurt for the most part. A lot of the offense was hurt. Lamar Jackson got hurt. But you took Lamar Jackson out with a little bit of time left in the third. The problem started way before then. This problem is not the problem isn't that you lost to the Kansas City Chiefs. The problem is that you acted like you wanted to lose to the Kansas City Chiefs. I did not see the effort from the Baltimore Ravens that I am used to seeing from a John Harbaugh-led team. This Baltimore Ravens team did not look like the Baltimore Ravens. They looked like the Washington Commanders back in the day when they had Mike Shanahan at their coach. They looked like a whole bunch of quitters. They did not put in the effort that needed to be there. The Kansas City Chiefs took advantage of that, and they blew them out of the waters. The score being 37-20 does not tell this whole story. The Ravens had times offensively when Lamar was playing where they looked successful. However, defensively, they did not look like they put in the effort that we are used to seeing from a Baltimore Ravens defense. And I know you're going to blame it on the injuries. I am not. I'm blaming the loss on the injuries. I'm blaming the effort strictly on the Baltimore Ravens. This one needs to be fixed ASAP, because if you want a chance at the playoffs, you're 1-3. You don't have any more time to mess around. We saw what happened with the Bengals last year. We know you're a good team, Baltimore. The entire world knows that the Baltimore Ravens are a good football team, but sometimes good is not enough. Sometimes good is not enough, because last year with the Cincinnati Bengals, they were a good team, yet they started too slow and they could not make it back into the playoff hunt. They tried. They won games at the end of the season, but it wasn't enough. And we're seeing the same thing with the Baltimore Ravens right now. Baltimore, if you don't step it up, if you don't show some effort, and I know you have injuries, I'm going to keep saying it because I know it's not only on that. However, if you are going to try and make the playoffs, it starts with trying to make the playoffs.
Having problem with parts of the recording that got a little bit distorted, so not going to be able to include the entirety of the segment for this episode. So I'm going to have to cut out this highlight part where I was going to talk about Puka Nacua and how he's maybe a top 3 receiver in the league and just had a phenomenal game. So that part got cut out. It got corrupted, the file. So just going to end the episode here, but stay tuned because I have big things coming up.
And that wraps up today's show. The NHL starts next Tuesday. The NBA starts in just under a month. MLB playoffs are here, so stay tuned for all of that. And DC family, look out, because it's DC Sports Talk time. I will be doing multiple episodes a week, including the DC episodes. So stay tuned for all of that and more. Watch out. I got some big things planned. Get used to seeing my face. Subscribe, like, follow the socials at sport.chaser on Instagram, at Chase Sotsky on X, and SportChaser on TikTok. Follow the socials. I'll see you there. See you guys next time. Peace. And now the end is near, and so I face the final curtain.